With me today is Steve Denning, author of the Leader's Guide to Radical Management, as I'm sure most of you know. Steve is also on the board for the Scrum Alliance, and he is a correspondent for Forbes magazine, where he has gathered 16,000 followers, and he's also working on a new book, which is tremendously exciting. Steve, can I turn it over to you?
Thanks, Dawn, and happy to be here today and have a chance to be with your conference. I'm sorry I'm not here in person, but delighted to answer your questions.
First question for you, Steve. What are the special challenges companies are facing today?
Three huge things have happened over the last couple of decades. One is globalization, the second is deregulation, and a third is new technology, in particular the internet. And in discussions about Agile, there's a lot of attention paid to the first two. The fact that there's globalization and deregulation, and the fact that this means there's more competition, and it means that there's a faster pace to doing things. But it's this third factor, the fact that power has shifted from the seller to the buyer, which has really transformed everything. Because with that, what it means is that the customer now has options. The customer has information, reliable information about those options, and can communicate with other customers. So power in the marketplace has shifted dramatically from the seller to the buyer. The customer is now effectively the boss. Is a much more difficult challenge for organizations to deal with. Simply turning out products through a hierarchical bureaucracy is how things happened most of the 20th century. Now, organizations have to deal with a customer that is fickle, that has choices, and their only choice, their only way to survive in this much more difficult environment is to deliver continuous additional value to the customer, in a sense to delight the customer. So the goal of the organization changes from delivering products and making money to delighting the customer. And this is a very different ballgame, a very different environment in which companies find themselves.
It's an entire shift in purpose.
I'd call it a Copernican shift in management. It's as big a shift as the Copernican shift in astronomy, when we realized that the sun didn't travel around the earth. In fact, the earth traveled around the sun. And in this area, we thought that the customer revolved around the firm. Now we're realizing that it's actually the firm that is revolving around the customer. The customer is now the center of the universe.
It's a great metaphor. How are companies trying to meet these challenges? Because it is, as you say, pretty radical shift in orientation. So what does that mean for companies, and how are they trying to adjust?
There are five big shifts that are critical. First of all, is a shift in the goal. The goal from using maximizing shareholder value to the new goal of delighting the customer, continuously adding value for the customer. And this drives everything. Everyone in the organization needs to have a clear line of sight to the customer and to understand how their work is actually delivering value to the customer. Secondly, there's a shift in the way work is structured. Instead of individuals reporting to bosses and bosses aiming to control the work of those individuals, now the managers are in a mode of enabling self-organizing teams. A shift from control to enablement, and a shift from individuals to self-organizing teams. Fundamental shift in the way work is structured. And then thirdly, the way work is coordinated. In 20th century, work was coordinated by bureaucracy. Now we have agile methods, iterative methods, where teams work in short periods and produce finished work, which they then submit to customer proxies, find in fact what the customer wants, and if it is, do more of it. If it's not, change direction and do something different. So it's a different way, a much more agile and nimble way of coordinating work. And fourthly, different values. Instead of a total focus on efficiency and predictability, now there's a huge emphasis on continuous improvement, continuously adding value to customers, and radical transparency. What's striking about these workplaces, go and visit them, is just how radically transparent everything is. Just walking through the workplace, you can see it at a glance what any team is working on, what's working well, what is not working well. This is complete opposite of a bureaucracy where everyone is hiding information from each other. So this is fundamental shift in values. And fifthly, communications. Instead of top-down communications with managers are telling individuals what to do, now we have interactive conversations, up, down, sideways. These are content. So those 5 shifts are the main shifts that organizations are adopting in order to deal with this very difficult and very different environment, and they are not separate items. They are, in fact, form a coherent set of practices that together work together as a cohesive and coherent whole. So it's the fact of doing them all together. Just doing 1 or 2 of them doesn't work. You change the goal of the organization, but you don't change the way the work is structured or the values or the way it's coordinated, you don't get any benefit. So those changes are fitting together as a system, a coherent, coordinated, integrated system.
Yeah, it's quite multi-level. So how is Agile helping that shift take place on those 5 levels?
Well, Agile is a set of values, if you read the Agile Manifesto, that reflect those shifts. I've expressed them more generally than in terms of software. The Agile Manifesto basically focuses on like working software, but I've generalized this to the whole organization beyond software so that one can see what those values are. So this is, in a sense, a broader articulation of what is Agile. And this way of sort of talking about work needs to cover those 5 dimensions. Often in Agile implementations, one is totally focused on the way work is coordinated and doing the iterations and having daily stand-ups and having retrospectives and all of the methodologies of Scrum and Agile. But those are much less important, if you like, than this bigger picture of those 5 basic shifts that need to happen.
So what does an executive or C-suite level manager decision maker need to know about Scrum and Agile that will support their company's goals?
Most important, this is not just a methodology. This is not just a new process, not a new gadget, not a new management fix that they can send people to a 2-day course and come back and you're done. But now you're Agile. It's not that at all. It's really, as I say, a different way of thinking about the work and a different way of understanding the work. And so managers, executives need to understand that it is a fundamental shift and it will take time. This is not something that can be done in a couple of days. And in a sense, they also have to have a different mindset. We had a recent set of site visits to companies. One of the things that each one of those companies stressed to us that this is about a different mindset, and a mindset of enablement rather than control. And with that mindset, the methodologies, practices, mindset, they don't have value. So if you try to implement simply the methodologies, the work practices without the different mindset, you don't get any benefit. So the most critical thing for managers is to understand and internalize and embody these different values, this different way of understanding the world. And they will need to champion it. This won't take place unless the managers in the organization or the unit are active champions, communicating this, embodying it in their own conduct, and persuading people that this is the way of the future.
Steve, tell us about the Learning Consortium. I know you've been out on tours and site tours and learning a lot from companies that are busy doing very innovative approaches. Tell us what that is, please.
Very exciting. We actually invited companies that were going through agile transformations to join us and learn from each other as to what they are learning. And 11 companies joined us, and there were some very interesting companies. Some big companies like Microsoft and Magna and Ericsson, some small companies, some small consulting companies, some middle-sized companies, but a wide array of companies, different geographies, some in the US, some in Europe, one in Asia, and different sectors, some in software, some in manufacturing, some in transport. So we had a wide diversity, and we went on site visits to 9 of the 11 companies, and we've now completed those site visits, and we've actually learned a tremendous amount. First of all, we learned that it is happening. One often hears in general management circles a doubt as to whether, in fact, this agile movement is in fact happening. Is it just talk, or is it actually happening? We were seeing and talking to people on the ground, not just listening to presentations, but actually talking private conversations with actually doing the work, and it is happening. And these implementations are quite remarkable in that they look and feel different. I mean, walking into these workplaces, one feels immediately this is a much more open, transparent workplace where people are actually inspired to do their job. This is energized, committed, engaged workplaces. Just strikingly different, even in some of those companies where you might not expect to find that. That's what we found. And we also were looking at a number of questions that people have been asking. Does it scale? Is this something that is only working in small teams, or does it scale? Does it work outside software? Does it handle very complex work? Does it handle work that needs to be fail-safe, medical devices where life depends on the thing working every time? Kind of difficult situations. And although the findings are still being finalized, we have a conference actually this weekend to discuss them. I think it's pretty clear that the answers to all those questions is yes. It does work outside software. It does work at scale. It does handle complex operations. It can handle fail-safe products. It is, in fact, quite sustainable. Some of these implementations have been going on for 5, 10, 15 years. So we're looking at something that doesn't have to be invented. It's already happening, and you can go and visit it and see it and touch it and feel it. If you like, the future is already here. It's just very unevenly distributed.
That's a great phrase. How can companies in Portugal take part?
Well, we are coming to the close of the 2015 Learning Consortium, but the members of the consortium, 11 members, are so excited that they want to continue it. And I think it's almost certain that we'll be doing another iteration of it, and we'll probably be operating with different chapters in different parts of the world, perhaps. And so it's quite conceivable that if firms in Portugal wanted to start a chapter and be associated with the Learning Consortium globally, I think that is looking to be a real possibility. So if you're interested in joining, contact us, stevedenning.com or Scrum Alliance, and we'd be happy to talk to you about how we can make that happen.
Steve, on behalf of Scrum Day Alliance, thank you very much for your comments. Most appreciated.
Thanks, Dawna.